So we've stitched that. So now we are going to flip the lining over, and I'm just holding it by the zipper tape. Okay, so as you can see that the two pieces are going downwards. So with the waterproof canvas, which is what I've used for my lining, you can press that if you want to, but only on a not too hot a setting. But you can also finger press it. It finger presses really well. There we go. And I'm just going to pull it to line up so that that's nice and even, but it also makes a little bit of a taut edge along this edge because we're going to top stitch the front now. So I'm going to put a clip there, do the same on the other end, just pull them both taut, but make sure they line up nicely. And then just put another clip to hold that in place there, just while I top stitch. You want a nice edge. Okay. So top stitch length. Okay, and again, I'm just going to be feeling and making sure that it's nice and flat and that the edges meet. And just top stitch along. Move my zipper, pull out of the way. There we go. Back up, and there we go. And that's what I was talking about before. I knew that it hadn't been lined, so that's what made me think I'd done it the wrong way. Okay. Okie dokies. Okay, so piece 104. So we're going to have the lining piece of 104 right side up. Let me make sure I've got it the right way. Yeah. So piece 104 right side up. And then this pocket piece that we've just made, we're going to lay that on top right side up and match the zip tape, match the edges and the bottom. It should come very close to the bottom. Might be a little bit of difference. I'm just going to clip that and just make sure the other edge is lined up. Where is it? There it is. Clip that in place and then clip the middles. I'm just putting a clip down the bottom to hold my edges together. It's got a tiny little difference in mine, but I want to make sure that they're held together. Okay, so what you've got here is your pocket, which is right side out. And basically you're having right sides to right sides of the lining. So right side of the lining piece to the right side of the pocket piece. So right sides together. Then we're going to baste that together. Back to my normal stitch length of 4. A bit closer to my zip, and then I'm going to open my zip. It's out of the way. Oops. So that should all be. I would like my flatbed to be just a little bit longer. It just would make it a little bit easier. Make sure everything's sitting flat. There we go. Okay, so next is top of the pocket. So piece number 106 is what we need, which is just that little strip. So we want to make sure this strip goes the right way. Again, just watch this piece with directional print on how you cut it, okay? Because you don't want your cats to be, you want them to be right way up. You don't want them to be upside down. Like that, okay? You want them to be the right way. So make sure your pattern piece is the right way. So I lay my work down in front of me and I lay my pattern piece above it to make sure the print is the right way. Then we're going to fold it down on top, okay? So I'll try and show you this way. So I've made sure my print's the right way, and then I'm just folding it down on top so that it's right sides together, all right? But now what we've got to do here is so that our edges end up straight, not this bit too far this way or too far this way, we've got to lay the points a little bit further past the edge. So we're not going to be matching point to point. So because I did a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance, I'm going to make this point come past this point by about 3/8 of an inch. And then on this end will be 3/8 of an inch further in than this one. So that then when we turn it, the edges will match up. Okay, so I'll show you what I mean. Just let me measure. I'm just going to put a little mark on my fabric so I know where my 3/8 is. It's going to be on the wrong side though, so get the point. And then on the other end, okay. So I've just made some little markings on each end, which is what I'm going to, so this point here is going to line up with that little mark I put on my piece. Put a clip. And I'm going to go down the other end, and that little point there should be 3/8 of an inch longer than this one here. Which I will measure that in a minute. I just want to clip it in place. And we've got 3. And I'll show you now why. Oops. This is something quilters will know. I'm not a quilter by any means. So that when we stitch it and we turn it, the edges should line up. So if this is further this way, or this edge is further this way, you haven't overextended it that little bit in the beginning, okay? So once you've done that, and we're going to stitch that in place, I've got my stitch length of 4, and I haven't been able to mark my seam allowance on this one because I needed to add it first. So you can't always add your sewing lines before you start, but where you can do, it just makes it easier. I'm getting close to my zipper pull. Just going to move it out of the way. Sometimes you just got to wiggle your work around to get it past your foot. This one's a little bit taller than. There we go. Okay, cut the ends off. Close that zipper up, have a look. So now that I've stitched it, you can sort of see that they're pretty even, except for my zipper tape. The edges are pretty even. That one, yeah, probably down a little bit, unless it's just me how I'm looking at it. But that's really important, otherwise it is going to be way off, okay? All right, so then the next thing we're going to do is top stitch. So I'm going to hook that up and just finger press it, and I'm going to top stitch along that edge close to the zipper tape. Then we can trim back the extra zipper tape and just see how it matches up. The zipper pull. So I'm just going to trim up that zipper tape, and then we can have a good look-see. Another one. There we go. So it's not too bad. Pretty much straight, but very important to do that little bit of an overhang. We need pattern piece 105. So we've got our pattern piece right side up, and then we're going to lay the pocket piece, so I'm calling this the pocket piece now, right side down. Okay, so you're going to have right sides together. So we're going to match the top edge and down this end. So I do one end and then the other just to make sure that the edges line up, and then just a couple of clips in the middle. And I try and always have the clips facing me. That way that's the side I'm going to sew on, but also you don't want the rounded edge of the clip, the bump, facing down on your plate. Okay. to make sure my edges still all match up together. So that one. Pop it in here so I can have a flatten out. See what's going on here. So it looks like that one's going to be a little bit out. Okay. Oops. Right, and then we're going to stitch that edge. Off we go. Seam allowance to the pattern. Right, then what we're going to do is we're going to fold that back. So I've unclipped everything. So this is the one we've just sewn. We're going to fold that back. And we're going to top stitch that edge, but I'm just having a look at how my seams all match up. Okay. So this edge here, we're going to give it a little bit of a roll and clip it. And then we're going to top stitch that edge there. So I'm just going to roll it. Like I said, if you've used quilting cotton, you can press it. You just want a nice flat edge. Go, and then I'm just going to top stitch that to change my top stitch length. Push that under a bit as I go. Have a look at how the back matches up. It's not too bad. Okay. So there we have that. So we now have our pocket. And then that will be the slip pocket. Now I'm just going to clip up my edges to see how they all match up, because if it's a little bit longer on the bottom edge, or if it's a little bit longer anywhere, I'm just going to give it a little bit of a trim down. So it could possibly be a little bit longer. This one looks like it might be a little bit wider. Appears to be flatter. And let me have a look at the back. Oh, it's not actually too bad. All right, we'll work with that and then we'll see how we go. So all I did was I'm just making sure that it's flat and that the edges meet. Got one, this side's a little bit wider on one of the linings, but I'm not going to trim it just yet. We'll see how I go. Okay, so now we're going to get your pocket, your panel with the snap and your pocket panel, and we're going to match them up that way, bottom edges and the sides. Okay, start that again. I mean, sometimes it's easier to clip the pieces in place so they don't move on you. But you've also got to make sure they're not bubbled up. They're lined up but not bubbled up, if that makes sense. Have another go. This side. Still had to clip that top bit anyway because I needed to see it. Other side edge. There we go. So that's what we've got. So there's our slip pocket, our zipper pocket, and what we're going to do now is we're going to just baste these on those 3 edges only. Okay. Change my stitch length. Make sure my zip pulls out of the way. So we're just basting around those 3 edges. Just making sure everything's flat as you go. And just making sure it's all flat up the last side. Okay, so now as you can see, we definitely have a slip pocket and a zipper pocket. All right, so what we have now, you should have, we'll call this the front panel, the back panel, and 2 linings is what you should have left, okay? So what we're going to do is I'm going to take the back panel that's got the flap and 1 lining. And that's the right side of the lining. And we're going to put those right sides together. Match my centres because I'll mark the centres of those as well, the lining pieces. It's a quick pattern if you don't have to unpick twice, all right? Okay, so we've got a back with our snap and a lining, right sides together. And then we're going to grab our front with our pocket and our other lining, and we're going to do the same thing. Match them right sides together along the top edge. And again, as you can see, I've already snipped my centres, found my centres. So line those up, and then we're going to stitch across the top of those with the seam allowance in the pattern. So we're going to stitch both of them across that top edge. I'll put one down to the side. My stitch length is on 4. And it is, just to make sure I'm doing now making sure that my the flap is flat. Now I'm just stitching straight across it at this stage, but I am going to come back and just give it a little bit of reinforcing. But I'm just going to go straight on to sew this other one first. Now I'm just going to bring back the one that's got the flap. And what I'm going to do is you can see that that's where the flap is there. I'm just going to do another row of stitching close to that row that's already there, okay? That will just help give it a bit of reinforcement, take a bit of pressure off that original row of stitching that's there as well. So you can see I've just done that extra row of stitching. So it just helps and takes a bit of the strain off that first row of stitching. Okay.